Income inequality is America's biggest problem, and I need to show you a snapshot of how bad it is and how bad it's gotten in the past 45 years. I'm going to break it down into four groups. So Americans, we hold about $164 trillion in wealth. Group number one, as you can probably guess, is the top 1%. There are 3.3 million people in the top 1%, and they hold $50 trillion. The next 9%, there's about 30 million people, and they hold $60 trillion. So combining those two groups is the top 10% who hold $110 trillion of our nation's wealth. Now, group three is the next 40%. There's 133 million people in this group, and they hold $50 trillion. But this group number three is what I'm calling the old school middle class. A lot of people in this group are over 50 years old. These are factory workers, mailmen, school teachers, police officers, the old school American dream where you could buy a house and build wealth, invest a little in the stock market, and have a great retirement. Then we go to group number four, which is the bottom 50%. There are 175 million people in the bottom 50%, and they hold only $4 trillion. Here is the craziest part about the whole thing. Back in the 1980-ish, adjusted for inflation, America's wealth was about $30 trillion. And today it's about $164 trillion. So in 45 years, the nation's wealth grew over $130 trillion. But unfortunately, back in 1980, the bottom 50% adjusted for inflation had $2 trillion of the nation's wealth. And today, it only has $4 trillion of the nation's wealth. So over $130 trillion went to the top 50%, and only $2 trillion went to the bottom 50%. And the nail in the coffin, the bottom 50% has 60 million more people in the group than it did in 1980. So that $2 trillion increase, that little $2 trillion, is now also being split by an additional 60 million people. This is going to continue to get worse, and we need to focus on economic policies that will raise the wages of the working people so they can afford a house and they can invest in assets so they can eventually climb the ladder, because it clearly, the trickle-down economics over 45 years did not work.